Hello everyone, this is Johnette Karpeh with a Socialite production. I am excited, I am on site. I'm taking it back to my roots. You know, this is Women's History Month, and a special lady who I want to highlight, she is no longer physically here with us, but I have someone just as good as Miss Judy, and it is her son. I'm going to introduce him in a moment, but we are standing here at Kings Park Apartments. This is where I grew up, and Miss Judy is one of the special adults who, well, not just adults, but women who were a part of my life and who helped to raise and today we want to take a few moments just to tell the story of her legacy and who she was, and I like to say who she is because her spirit is still alive and well. So before I go forward into my story, I want her son, David Howard, to introduce himself so that he can talk a little about who he is, and then we'll get into the storytelling. David?
Hey, sweetie. First of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for honoring my mother.
Yes.
Yep, we are at a really important place for me. I spent 40 of my years coming in and out of here. But I'm David Howard. I have a few titles, but I think one of the titles that I'll share today is that I'm a former city council member here in Charlotte. More importantly, though, I'm Miss Judy's oldest son, so I look forward to sharing as much about her as you want me to share.
Yes. Well, Miss Judy, she's and it's actually Judy Howard, but she's a very special person. I'll say a giant to the city, and I'll let him speak about his mother in that way. But just a little about me. So I am a first-generation Liberian American. I was born and raised in Charlotte to two immigrant parents from Liberia, West Africa. And so for me, my childhood started here at Kings Park. They actually started at Parker Heights up the street. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, David. And
Absolutely.
And then I came here. And so what's interesting about my connection with David, obviously because it's Miss Judy's son, but I recall when I was a child, and he just looked like this big basketball star, tall, slim. He would just he would come through, and he was definitely a part of those memories, right? But Miss Judy has made an impact not only for the city of Charlotte, but even for the immigrant community. Because back in the day, it was a little bit more challenging for immigrants, specifically Africans. And so one thing about a Socialite production, we're connecting the world through faith, culture, and entertainment. And we do that by way of authentic storytelling. And so Miss Judy is the one who started that, the bridging of the gap between cultures, between mindsets and perspectives. So I want to do a little storytelling. I'll have David start by just talk about, first of all, who was Miss Judy for those who do not know her?
Well, I mean, in addition to being my mother, she also is the mother of three other people. My sister Trinace, my brother Aaron, and my sister Ayanna, as well as a foster mother to my sister Beth. But I'll tell you a little bit about her story here. So she came to Kings Park because she was working at Duke Energy at the time and wanted to be home when we came home. She didn't want us to be latchkey kids. So she actually went back to school because she heard about how apartment managers could live on site. So she went back to school intentionally looking for an opportunity where she could live on site, be at home when we were home. So the story goes, because I was young, I was like 5 or 6, Mr. Trotter, who used to own this property, Trotter Properties, was looking for somebody that he could train that was up and coming. So she actually got this job when she was 25 years old.
Oh, wow.
Which was kind of unheard of. Kings Park was one of the places people wanted to live on this side of town.
Yeah.
It already had a history. So she intentionally sought this job out so she could be here. And I think that's what led to opportunities like her helping your parents.
Oh, yeah, when my parents came to the States.
Because we were here. So that's what was the most important part.
Yeah. So one thing about Miss Judy, she didn't play any games. She was about her business. And I know she was like that with her kids, but...
Even more so.
Yeah. But everyone she took care of, we were her kids. You could not tell her that we were not. And so when you talk about legacy, because Women's History Month, you're talking about the contributions that women have made, not only to society, but to their world, to their cities, to people they know and that they do not know, right? So I just remember her instilling confidence in me, because I was not a confident child. I was an introvert. Everybody always surprised to hear that, but yes, I was. And I was in elementary school, right? But my point is, she helped to groom me. She helped to give me confidence. she showed me service, because she was a woman of service, and that's some of the things that I'm gonna have him speak about. But just as it relates to Miss Judy's contributions, not only to her home and to the community, but to the city of Charlotte, and I'll probably even say the state of North Carolina, kind of talk about her legacy and how she contributed towards that.
So I'll do it a little chronologically, if you will. I'll be honest with you. It wasn't until she passed that you pointed out that she actually rented to your parents when other people were not doing that. Hadn't even thought about the cultural aspects of it. I never even thought about it.
Yes.
But if you can remember, there were a number of African families.
A lot.
So, I mean, I didn't understand that was something that made it special, because, as you know, Kings Park back then, we had no problems filling up units.
Yeah.
So, the fact that she had this social bent towards doing her business was not something I even realized.
Yeah.
But you saw that show up over and over and over again. So, I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but my mama was a consummate entrepreneur.
Yes.
She did taxes.
Yes.
She I don't think she charged most of the people she helped with babysitting. I mean, she always had this idea thing going. One of her friends called her Enterprising Judy, because she was always coming up with an idea to make money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she took that and kind of turned it into this thing of helping people, but she also, she lived it. But she also wanted to make sure that we had stability, not just in our home, but in this community.
Absolutely.
So because she cared so much and we lived on property, one of the things I'll tell you she did is she started the Kings Park Children's Club. I think you guys were a little young to miss that one.
Yeah.
But for us, it was just another way. If we were going to spend time, if people were going to spend time in the house anyway, I think she married the idea of having people from the library come read to us. She married the idea of having people from the health department come talk to us about the birds and the bees.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, and our house turned into kind of the hangout.
Yeah.
I mean, like, for instance, that's when you used to go get the big projectors that you put the big reels on. So she would go rent these big reel movies, and we watched, I mean, so if you talk to Sherry and Angela and a lot of the ones that were a little older than you, we watched Roots in my living room.
Look at that.
So she went and got each reel, and we come up, she popped popcorn the old way, because there was no microwave.
Old school.
And we would sit there and watch Roots, but she wanted to make sure that we were well-rounded kids. We took trips to Old Dominion. We went to Carowinds a lot. That was before we had seatbelts too, seatbelt laws. So she used to pile us all in the car and take us over to Dairy Queen.
Yeah. And
I'll come back. We went to Dairy Queen one time, and the people laughed because it was kind of like a little clown car. The kids kept coming and coming and coming. And the lady said, "How many kids you got in there?" So she used to tell us that, because I don't remember, I was young, but making sure that she developed young people, and she did it in our community, she did it at church.
Yeah.
She was a choir director at church. I mean, she was a youth leader at church. She believed in giving back, because I believe she had the same thing happen for her when she was younger.
And Kent, before you go too far, I want to go back to, you're talking about how she housed people, meaning like, coming in to watch movies and just for a place to gather. I think about my friend Joseph Coleman, right? And it's funny because
Joseph's been alive.
Yeah. and the thing is, because we both were just amazed, because clearly we were there at the same time but didn't know each other. Now we're like great friends, but years later we realized we originally, sorry, that was a B. We originally had a connection with Miss Judy, and he talked about how Miss Judy would literally take him on the weekends.
Oh no, Joseph stayed. Joseph was the little brother. So I mean, because his mom worked on the weekends a lot, he went to church with us.
Yeah.
I mean, he hung out. So what made you and Joseph a little different was that you guys lived in an apartment building right behind us.
Okay.
So there were other children that came and lived, stayed with us until their parents got home. But because of you all's parents' schedule being a little different, you guys, all I remember is opening the back door so you could walk across the backyard to go home. Or Joseph walk up to go home. It wasn't walking around the building. So you guys were a little different. You guys were kind of closer family because you were so close.
Yeah. So that's so special.
So and back then we hung clothes on the line.
Yes.
So
I remember.
We saw each other in the backyards a lot.
Sure did.
But no, that was you all had a little different because of proximity. But she didn't have favorites. Be clear, she didn't have favorites.
Well, actually, I thought I was her favorite, but that's how she made everyone.
That was my disclosure. I'll tell you after camera off that she had no favorites.
Oh man, I miss her so much.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We're not going to make this emotional.
No.
We're not crying today.
I already told her I'm not doing that on camera.
We're not crying today. And
she got me to do it on the phone last week, but I'm not
we
doing
kind
it
of
on
cried.
camera.
And the thing is why it's getting emotional, because Miss Judy is no longer of course, clearly you guys know, she's no longer here. She passed away to cancer, and my mom passed away 5 years ago to cancer. So now, years later, initially we shared the bond of Miss Judy and just the community, and now we're sharing this other bond by way of, seasons and grief and how life has changed. And I think I want to transition into that, because even as we stand in front of the Kings Park sign, I'm a little upset because this is not the original sign. I want that brown brick, whatever sign it was, and it's not. And so I wanted to actually stand in front of, excuse the noise, but in front of the road sign. But David reminded me, there's seasons. We have to adjust to it. So kind of talk about seasons as it relates to kind of the life we're living now without our moms and just how things are changing.
Well, I can tell you one thing, and I shared this with you on the phone. Somebody should have told me how hard this grief thing was going to be.
Chad, you can't.
I've heard plenty of people tell me that, losing a parent is hard, and I underestimated how hard watching her go down from cancer, the weight loss, the hair loss, the memory loss. I mean, just all those things were way harder than anybody told me.
It's traumatic.
So that's the first thing. So this season of entering into kind of what happens when your parent is not the strongest person in your life anymore was real for me. I didn't know how to adjust to that. I mean, I think they ought to put that in a textbook somewhere to help you understand that as you make that transition in the season of your parent becoming the one that needs you, that is hard. I mean, and the next part of it is kind of how you live without them, how you start to make decisions without them. And then there's a season to come. I mean, it's that season of the fact that, my mother had me when she was 19, so I'm 19 years pacing her on that whole mortality conversation. What do you do with that season? So, I mean, there's a lot of things going on, but I think you're also talking about kind of what Charlotte is. I mean, a lot of urban areas are going through the same thing Kings Park is going through, which is, as the urban center city kind of spreads out, these areas are becoming places where gentrification happens. So, I mean, I don't know the new ownership, but I mean, they went up in rent hundreds of dollars overnight once it was sold after she passed. I mean, and that's just kind of the reality is that seasons do change, things move on. I mean, the great thing is that I think overall things especially for a city, things get better. I mean, because the conditions and not having, being in a food desert, a lot of those things will change as this area changes, but it's unfortunate for the people who needed it, like your parents and my mother did, to have an affordable place to live. It's getting harder and harder to find. Things get better, but some of the history, for those who live here, of course, when people come, they don't know, right? But I have a good friend, Winston Robinson. He is an advocate for the West Side. Of course, just in general for his city, but for the West Side, because if you see up the street Golden Walk, are they about to tear that down? I hope. No, the lady who ran it got older and she retired.
Oh,
I mean, so
it's just such a landmark. But
but at one point that was, I don't know if it was before your time, that was a Kentucky Fried Chicken.
You know what,
so things evolve. That's just the way that happens. So it will be something else because this area is too valuable not to be. But seasons. It's just getting. To your point, things change. But let me be clear about history too, though. As long as there are people like you doing things like this, we won't lose the history.
That's true.
I thank you for being part of keeping that.
Absolutely. Okay, now, so it's so much to talk about with Miss Judy, but I'm trying to break it up in small segments. But so Miss Judy was a woman of service, of community. And that's another valuable trait that I know that I got from her. Of course, my mom as well, but Miss Judy was a big part of my upbringing. One thing that I watched throughout the years consistently, even as she was transitioning, is her passion for Mama. And that's Mothers of Murdered Offspring. And so I'm gonna let David speak about that because he was or is a part of that organization, but that was one of many initiatives, whether public or not, like that Miss Judy would be a part of. But talk a little bit about Mama and the importance of that organization.
Sure. It was actually back in 1993 that my god sister Shauna Hawk actually was found murdered. And for us, that set off a bunch of emotions that I can't even explain, that I still get emotional about talking about. But for the whole year of 1993, we didn't know what happened. She was just found murdered in her home. And it was actually my mother who was worried about her mother, my godmother, Dee Sumter, because my mother went looking for a support group for her, and the closest thing for a parent who had dealt with a murder of a child was a organization in Nashville, Parents of Murdered Children.
Gotcha.
And my mother took that idea, and I remember calling me, I was just 23 myself, and said, hey, why don't we start our own group? You know, that's my mother. She didn't mind, putting a stake in the ground and saying, let's go try this.
Mm-hmm.
And because we were so worried about Dee, to be honest with you, is why it started.
Mm-hmm.
So Shauna was found on February the 19th, 1993. And by March the 29th, almost a month and a few days later, we had our first support group meeting down at Amy James Recreation Center right down the street.
Mm-hmm.
Put out this press release, and I don't know, we showed up and the room was full. And I'm not exactly sure we knew what we were doing back then. So there were three of us. There was my mother, my godmother, and I.
Mm-hmm.
My godmother being the out front person, of course, because it was her story. My mother got really involved with helping families because she always had that love for people. And my job was to do all the business stuff in the background. Raise the money, make sure we had a nonprofit, make sure we did everything right. So that became what we did. I can tell you that over the years, both my godmother and I have gone on to do other things, but my mother stayed consistently involved helping families. As a matter of fact, if you remember when she passed, we had a memorial service here down at Freedom Park. Marshall Park. And people showed up in droves and went on and on about how she would take time to talk to them whenever they would call. As a matter of fact, that was the ongoing story about everybody. Everybody said that every time they talked to Miss Judy, she gave them hours. She gave me hours. I don't know when she slept. And even most people don't know this, but while she was still sick, we had to kind of coach her and fuss and say, Mama, go lay down. Reserve your energy. Because she was still up preparing the picture badges and providing the keepsakes that she kind of, invented. I mean, those picture badges that people love,
she did my mom's.
The purple ribbons, that was Miss Judy's signature. In fact, she turned that into a business called In Memory Of, so that people who didn't get murdered, that still wanted the picture badges, and didn't want it from Mothers of Murder Offspring, they got it from In Memory Of, and she took those funds to support the organization. Even after Mamo got going, she started another part of Mamo kind of called In Memory Of, where she actually did the keepsakes for families that hadn't lost a member to a family member to murder, so that she could support other families like your family. And she did this all over the world, y'all. So, quick story. So she was also the one, back in 1993, MAD was the big thing then, drunk driving, and they had a red ribbon. So she had this thing where she said, hey, we need our own ribbon. There was no picture badge, we had ribbons. So purple was my god sister Shauna's favorite color. So we picked purple for that reason. Fast forward to 2000, and she came up with this whole slogan, purple's a national color for nonviolence. Purple's a national. We said it everywhere. When people got murdered in other cities, she was sending purple ribbons to them. She was determined to make it catch on. I was on a fellowship with the German Marshall Fund in 2009, and was sitting there talking to an NGO, a nonprofit that dealt with domestic violence. They pull out their annual report, y'all, and on the front of it was a big purple ribbon.
Look at that.
And I started crying. The people like, what's wrong with you?
Of course.
Like, y'all don't understand. This started in my mama's living room for my god sister. And it got picked up as a domestic violence color. It got picked up by other people. I even saw someplace where it's called Purple Ribbon for Urban Violence. That started in that same little apartment that you used to stay in.
That's still there now.
And now it is recognized around the world.
Awesome.
So, her legacy is way bigger than anything that we probably even realize right now.
And the thing about it is, Miss Judy wasn't about name dropping or lifting herself up, or taking credit. So whether she received the credit or not, she was about that business. She was about, I like to say, that action. She was more than just talk.
No, she cared nothing about
she
credit.
Did
we just have to make her. When people wanted to recognize her, we had to make her go. She was determined that it needed to be about somebody else, so she was pushing somebody else forward. She got comfortable with it later on in life, but she was not comfortable early on.
So she just had an awesome, excuse me, these bugs. She had an awesome heart, and her presence is still so strong today that although she's not physically here, clearly you know that, but it's like you still feel her presence, right? The memories. When I drive up and down the street, like every now and then, because what I used to do, like on a Sunday or maybe a Saturday morning after I would work out, I will come by to see her, or I'll just drive by just to feel the memory of just from childhood. It's just, I don't know. I can't even articulate it.
Kings Park,
this neighborhood. It's something about this neighborhood. So
standing in the circle.
Yes. All right. Yes. So now we're going to talk about legacy. And so the work that Miss Judy started, it did not end. It continues by way of her offspring. And so David, he definitely represents her legacy, in addition to his siblings that he's going to talk about. But David, talk a little bit, starting with yourself. How are you living out Miss Judy's legacy?
Well, the first thing is that, I won't go on and on about kind of all that. It's my uncle.
See, we in the neighborhood, so this
that's my
family.
mama's little brother.
Oh, for real? So he still lives here?
He's the only family member.
Oh.
Anyway,
we're going to have to go up there. Anyway,
that's a good piece to believe in it.
Yeah.
So what you should know about legacy for me is that, of course, you see me living out public service right in front of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that was actually giving back early in life, because that's what we did in our household.
Mm-hmm.
Our household was not just about what happened inside of our little space, but it was about kind of what happened outside of it.
Yes.
And because I saw her give to so many people, it became clear to me I needed to do something.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just in us. My grandmother, if you look at her service at church, we've always been that family that got involved. For me, that meant showing up and getting involved early with being appointed to things like the Planning Commission, helping start MAMO, actually being elected to city council, going on to work in Washington for the Obama administration.
Sure did.
Recently, I ended my time of working with Roy Cooper in Raleigh with his administration. So, it's been this life of kind of giving back, because that's what I saw lived out in front of me. And, you see the same thing kind of with my siblings. You definitely see it with our grandkids. Our grandkids are just kind of knocking. If you think everything I just told you was something, I think you have not even seen what the grandkids are going to do. Some of the things they're doing already is kind of beyond anything that I can even imagine.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of what they're doing, and she would be very proud.
Yeah.
Extremely proud.
Yeah, and it's clear that he's Miss Judy's legacy, in addition to his siblings, because every car is stopping, trying to speak. So we're trying to focus through, but there's a lot of activity going on. It's like he's a celebrity, but it's just the impact that they have made.
Yeah. I usually don't come up here because people do want to know how we're doing. It's just too much.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah. So we're gonna break real fast. So in addition to that, I want to speak about your wife, Mary.
The serial entrepreneur.
Yes.
I married
has
my
a
mama.
Lot of Miss
my
Judy's traits. Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about her?
Sure. My wife has always had just one idea after another, whether it was catering, personal in-home healthcare service, helping her parents with their transportation business, you name it. She kind of just this little, engine that can when it comes to ideas.
Yeah.
Which we share, because I have a lot of ideas too.
Absolutely.
But usually I let her go off and do them.
Yeah.
But right now she runs a very successful dessert catering business called the Dessert Destination, where she has been blessed with clients both at the airport as well as folks like you guys ordering from her. Yeah. I can say this now because I told my mother this. There was a time when I would eat nobody's cake but my mom and my grandmama. My wife's cake is better than both of them.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry. You wanted that to stay? You mean edit that out? You sure you want that to stay?
It's the truth. And I told my mother before she left.
All right.
My mother loved her
I
cakes.
do not condone what he said.
Her cakes are par none. And I don't even like going other places now. I used to go to a little cupcake, stores.
Why?
I can't do it.
Don't waste your money.
Can't do it.
One thing I will say though, I've never had his grandmother and mother's cake, so I'm not comparing. I've only had Mary's. And when I say, the thing is, she's very creative as it relates to the design and just the thought she put behind the theme. but then it's also moist and delicious. You know, sometimes you get either or. So anyway, this is not
Mary, that was a commercial for you.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to say. It's not about you, but I have to put that in there. So the dessert destination. So, but anyway, but more so than that, just her spirit she carries is similar to Miss Judy's. Different, but similar. And so when you talk about legacy, when you talk about just moving forth in life, it's clear that you were intentional.
No, Mary and I, when we first started dating, it was about community service. She got involved with Mama. She was already doing things. So, I mean, you know, some of the things that connected us, in addition to the fact that the girl could cook.
Yeah.
Because she could cook back then. She come from a long line of cooking women. But in addition to that, her sweet spirit, you know, her demeanor, you know, reminded me a lot probably of my mom more than I even thought. Because I don't think I saw it then. But their approach to like doing 12 things at one time and coming out at the end with something is not my style. So from that standpoint, I definitely see the similarities.
And to add to it, one piece we didn't add, she's a woman of faith. Miss Judy was a woman of faith. Sure. David definitely is, and his wife, and of course siblings and family is, which has been important in all
one
of
the most important things that has helped me since October of 2020.
Yes.
Because she lost her dad earlier that same year.
That's right.
So we both had this journey of dealing with, you know, two of the strongest people we've ever known actually transitioning and having to help each other through that.
Yeah. In continuation with the theme of seasons, you know, with our mothers transitioning and, you know, you're respecting the wishes, sometimes the conversation around that isn't really had as far as what they want. You know, it's always kind of like what we want, right? But talk about if it's not too hard, but as Miss Judy started to transition, how did you guys honor her and just handle that? How did you handle all of that?
So the first thing, and I alluded to it earlier, is that, you know, I just need to make sure I do, you know, that public service announcement for the public. Losing your parent is the hardest thing that you will do. I would think it's right up there with losing a child or losing a spouse, but I'm telling you, the hardest thing I've had to do was watch her transition. So nobody said it to me clear enough, and I want to say that as clear as I can. But, you know, it's funny because I want to tell you a little story real quick.
Yeah.
My sister, Wanda, who lives in Atlanta, reminds me a lot of you. Y'all need to meet.
Okay.
Y'all have very similar personalities.
Okay.
But her mother, my stepmother, actually passed kind of suddenly. And my mother actually, you know, passed over about almost 3 years. And we've actually talked about which one is easier. You know, to have it happen quick and have a lot of questions, or have to deal with it happening slowly. And I don't think either one of them is easy. But the great thing for me is that because it happened over time, she was able to have conversations about what her wishes were.
Yes.
I mean, my mother told me very early on to make sure to let her have her dignity and to let, you know, women help her as she was transitioning. Because my mother actually, you know, it took 2.5 years for her to pass. We were able to have a lot of conversation. I'll tell you, early on, she wanted to start sharing with me her requests and her final affairs, and I would put it off because I kept thinking having that conversation meant that I was accepting that she was going to leave, would not do it. It was going to the doctor with her where I finally started to realize that even if she did stay or didn't stay, I needed to know more to make sure I honored her wishes. Honoring her wishes became kind of the thing that I grabbed hold to get me through it, to be honest with you. You know, making sure that, you know, who got what, you know, who she wanted to have this scarf got the scarf, who got this phone got this phone, who got this. That became, you know, what drove me, making sure that her affairs were right so that we didn't have, you know, she kept talking about seeing families have to deal with probate because they didn't have wills. We didn't have that problem. She wrote it out in detail where she wanted, and we went back over it. We worked on getting her beneficiaries right. I mean, this is a commercial for me to other families, especially black families. Please take the time to have the conversations. Even if they live for another 20, 30 years, you still need to know what their wishes are. I didn't have that problem because she made it very clear who she wanted to have what. She did a funeral program. She went to the funeral home and picked out her casket, picked out the presents and gifts she wanted to go to family members, the blankets she wanted to give. She did all that herself because she wanted it to be done her way. She told me the 2 people that were going to sing at her funeral, and told me, y'all not gonna have a long funeral.
See?
I'm telling you, we're not gonna be around here for we're not gonna be there for 3 hours with people getting up and talking.
Yep.
2 people talk, 2 people sing, and I want y'all to be out of there. She picked a great spot. I mean, now that's not everybody's story.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, the point of it is that it became kind of my mantra to honor her wishes.
Yes.
I mean, even her wish of who would take care of her. She never wanted her sons to see her in an uncompromising situation, and I didn't do it. I mean, you know, when it came time to help her do things, my sisters came, my aunt came. I gave my mother her dignity, which is the smallest thing I could do for her as she started to transition. I mean, it's the smallest thing I could do. And I made sure she had everything she asked for.
I'm sorry. There's a butterfly, a beautiful butterfly,
and you know, that was her
flying around us.
Mama,
and I don't ever see butterflies.
She loved butterflies. If you go look at her marker, there's a butterfly.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Miss Judy's gonna make her presence known, right?
Yeah.
And I know she is so proud of not only you, but all of your siblings, you know, the grandkids, just how you guys are standing strong through this time. It is not easy, but you guys are doing it. And one thing I'll say, I haven't mastered it yet. I'm still in this thing a little further than you, but give yourself grace. And sometimes it's okay to be selfish, meaning like with your time, with your energy, with your family. And I think you've done a good job in doing that, in balancing your space.
Well, one of the things that's really important, and I should have said this earlier too, is that, you know, as black men, we actually somewhat stay away from the term of therapist or counselor. And I was pretty good. You know, that thing in the Bible about David encouraging himself. I always prided myself on being able to realign myself. Taking me a weekend, get myself together, and what I noticed coming after Mama passed is that those weekends got longer and longer and longer and longer. I couldn't snap back. I still have not gotten my energy back. I mean, there are the days when, you know, you have to make yourself get up. And then there are days when I remind myself, just like when you get on a plane, put your mask on first.
Yes.
I have told my whole family, I mean, you know, whereas I used to be the guy that would kind of give of myself, if I'm not feeling it today, I'm gonna take care of putting my mask on before I have to deal with you.
Absolutely.
And that, and my wife would tell you, I've been very keen about what I give my energy to and what I don't.
Yeah.
Because going through that, I mean, just to be clear, going through that, you have no patience for anything. I mean, people say stuff that used to be kind of BS you would let ride, and you call it right there. So, I mean, I did a lot of that over that 2.5 years, and I had to calm myself down because I just didn't give energy to stuff that didn't matter. I'm still not doing it, but I'm trying to be more patient and understanding.
Yeah.
But where I was going with that is that I have found a great grief counselor that has kind of helped me understand how things move on around you and how God wants you to be still.
Be still.
And I have learned the be still part of this because I'm so used to making stuff happen that she told me, you know, this is your season of kind of sitting still and watching where God is going with things. And it's been a very, very, very trying time. Emotionally, relationships, you know, with my career, it's been a huge transition time. But I've had to sit in this so that I could actually get my energy back to the level it needed to be.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, and you said something a few minutes ago that I want to kind of say before we wrap up. So you talked about legacy and how proud she was. So my mother came from a family of 8. She was the oldest girl, which meant she took care of people like my uncle. I mean, she was the second mom for most of her family. And at some point, funny enough, all of her siblings, I think all of them lived in Kings Park at one point. In fact, my youngest uncle still lives here, but all of them, except for my Uncle Elijah, lived in Kings Park. Everybody. So she was able to provide kind of that nurturing all the way through their lives. But one of the things, because we're originally all from Charlotte, my grandparents, because they had 8, grew up in poverty. I mean, you know, I've heard her tell stories about holes in the floor, living in Brooklyn. I mean, we've heard these stories. And my mother wanted something different. My mother was determined it would be different from us. That's why Kings Park was an intentional move for her. That's why she made intentional moves to make sure that David's life would be different.
Absolutely.
So it was a night, you know, I ran for mayor.
Yep.
2015.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Did I help with that or something? Oh, okay. So
Fundraiser was the best party I had the whole campaign.
Yes. Anyway, let's focus.
but the night I lost, I'm down. She calls me, and again, family and poverty, a lot of those same things that our cousins deal with drugs and alcohol. All those things plagued my family. My mother never did any of it. But other members of my family dealt with all of those things that plague black families, especially in the 70s and 80s. So it was this thing, and I'm saying this the right way, I lived a life of trying to make sure that I upheld the Howard name to mean something different than what people thought of it.
Gotcha.
That's been my charge to people to not say, oh, and the Howards. I mean, whether it be in our church, my mother had me when she was 19, those things that people say about what families, come from, I wanted it to be different. So my mother got married, so her name was Judy Howard Williams. All right, so the night that I called her, and she said, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. I am so proud of you, what you pulled off. And I know that you have wanted to change what people thought about Howard's, and you've done it. I am so proud of you. Oh. She said, so many people walked up to me saying, I'm telling them I'm your mom, but my name is Judy Williams. And, I had to explain it. She said, you got me wanting to go back and change my name back to Howard. So that night after I lost, her thing is that, David, I know you've wanted to change what people thought about Howard's. You wanted to raise the level of it. Now, she had done it all on her own, but most people knew her as Judy Williams. Yes. Because that was her married name. Yeah. But what she said is, David, I'm so proud of what you did. people know who the Howards are now. You have seriously got me thinking about going to change my name back to Howard, because I am so proud of what you pulled off. I cried like a baby.
Of course. How can you
Because
not?
that's what all of this has been about for me. It's not about the titles. It's not about the projects. It's not about the accolades. I mean, I wanted people to think about Howard's the way that I know my mother and my grandmother lived. And I wanted to give that the dignity of what I did with my life. And I know that's what I've tried to do.
That is awesome. And I can only imagine you replaying that conversation in your head.
I can do it. I do it all the time. So, and the great thing is, because my mother got interviewed so much, I got all this video. Yeah. Whenever I want to hear her voice, I just put in Judy Williams, Charlotte, and I can
you have a bunch of stuff,
a whole bunch of stuff
to choose from. What's interesting is you're talking about your mom calling and saying how proud she is of you. I still have my voicemail. My mother's voicemail from when I was, me and Rashika had the campaign party for you, or party event, whatever. But my mom,
fundraiser.
That's what it was. It was a party too, right? Because I like to party. Anyway, but in all seriousness, my mom left this voicemail, and she was saying how proud she was of me, because that was a big deal for me to, coming out in the public and just kind of leading that, but. She started to go in on you. You know how my mother, David was her son as well, right? And in that voicemail, I'm going to actually let you listen to it when we cut this off, but she was like, tell David, let me just stop, because I don't even know exactly how she said it, but in paraphrasing what she said how proud she was. She was of you, and she was like, and tell him to represent. And she did that with passion. She will always talk about, because my mom worked at the government building right uptown with David. Every time she would see him, you would think it was a celebrity. It was like, okay, Mama, we know David works. I mean, we get it. Do you have something special else, or it's just because you saw David? But she saw you in high regards. My dad as well. But my mom, she just loved you.
Your dancing daddy.
My dancing daddy.
Daddy got moved. So two quick things before we stop this.
Okay.
So the first thing, audience, you should know about Johnette is that even though she knew me since she was a little girl, when I called her for support, she said, yeah, but I'm going to come meet with you because I need to know what you stand for.
I did.
So she smiled, she laughed, I love you, but before I'm going to help you, I need to know. So she came to my campaign. No, she didn't do it over the phone. She came and sat down, looked at me in my face, had a list of questions, and she went down each one of them. So this is the kind of people my mama raised that I don't care how much I know you, you're going to earn this one.
I mean, you know.
And the story about your mom is that,
I hadn't seen her in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being on the elevator with her more than one time, and every time I saw her, because she was short, she looked up and said, "You don't remember me, do you?"
Yeah.
You know, she said, you know, Charlie and Johnette's mom. Oh, hey, we hug, and she would always have this big smile on her face.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me how proud she was.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know,
she did.
So I mean, so I had the opportunity to see her off and on, a lot, and she would always hug me. And after a while, it just kind of became our thing.
Yeah.
Because we would wind up on the elevator sometime together, and it was always a great reminder of how much our families meant to each other.
Yeah. Oof. Nope. We ain't getting emotional. Nope. We almost through. I just thought about my mom's hugs, and then Miss Judy hugs, like. And I'm sorry, I know this is about David, but I just want to give a quick story when I came to visit Miss Judy. And to be honest, I did not want to visit, more so because I knew she was declining, but I could not stay away. So I came, and that day she was just coughing. She was coughing off and on, but she was able to talk, right? But she was trying to act like she was okay. And I was just like, Miss Judy, you know, let me go. No, baby. I mean, just coughing up a storm, but she just wanted me there in her presence. And it's when I hugged her, the love, right? And so, yeah, just thinking about the two similarities between them, how they just loved people, even as they were going through. They wanted to suppress that just to be there for us.
It was a couple of weeks before she passed. We took her down to the Cancer Centers of America near Atlanta.
Yeah.
And at that time, she was just barely able to get around. But it was after the doctor did all these tests, and they told her there was nothing else she could do. And she finally said, "Look, David, I've done all I'm going to do. I'm ready to, if I'm going to not be here, I want to do it my own way." It was at that moment that I realized everything she had done, she had been doing for us. So the trying, the juicing, trying the doctors, every place we ran her around, because she had already kind of concluded that she and God were good.
Woo!
So it took me a minute to understand that she was doing all of that for us, and it was time for us to let her live out the way she wanted it the rest of her life. But I mean, you got to hear me. She could barely move, and let me drive her all the way to Atlanta, trying one more thing. Just trying one more thing before she finally said, "Baby, this is it for me."
I'm good.
And 2.5 weeks later.
Good. Yep.
So.
Yeah, that's kind of similar.
They do it for us.
Yeah.
They really try really hard for us.
Yeah. So, you know, David, we can go on and on and on. One thing I know about my mom and Miss Judy, they love to talk. You like to talk too, so we can go on and on, but I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But I'm just thankful for the opportunity just to sit and have a conversation. I mean, we talk on the phone, but this is just different. It's different because I can just feel Miss Judy's presence. And like I said, there's something about this neighborhood that is just special and very sentimental. But before we close out, I guess, is there anything you just want to say or leave individuals with about your mom, about the legacy, about the city, about the West Side, just whatever you want to share?
I want to thank the community for wrapping their arms around my mother and all that she meant to this community, as well as all the people that wrapped their arms around my family as we were going through that. In fact, I want to, on camera, thank you and your dad and your family for, you guys would just kind of leave messages.
Yeah.
And I finally just kind of text you and said, "Look, I got your message, just can't do this right now."
Okay.
Just to say, you're in my mind, you're in my prayers, and things are going to be okay. We've been this way before. If you need to talk about it, let us know. I mean, there are a handful of people that did that, and you guys have consistently done that. So I want to say thank you.
Oh,
and please tell your dad I said thank you.
Will do.
Especially when it's people who understand what we lost.
Absolutely.
Other people would do it because they knew her from the public, but they didn't know her heart and other things about her. So anytime somebody who had a real relationship with her actually reaches out, it means a lot to us all.
Absolutely.
So please don't stop.
Absolutely. No, it's. I mean, we family. Yeah. So I mean, we can't.
Well, I'm saying that for my siblings, for her grandchildren. Mm-hmm. You know, you're not bothering us to ask us how you guys doing. Yeah. You're not bothering us. Yeah. In fact, we love talking about it, Mama. When you called and asked me, did I want to do this?
You were like, yeah, I didn't know, because it may have been too hard, right? But the thing about grief is, from day to day, especially when it's fresh, you don't know what you need, what you want. Some days you may feel like talking, some days you don't, but you still appreciate those calls, even when you don't call them back.
You love talking to people that knew them.
Yes. And because
you're not talking about what you thought, you're talking about experiences and stories that you can share.
Yes.
That means something to me always.
Yes, absolutely. Well, David, again, like I said, thank you. Usually with my conversations in Social Light Production, I always open up with a prayer, but we just got right into it. I was excited to start talking about Miss Judy, but we're going to wrap up with a quick prayer. And again, we're standing out here in front of this sign. It's not the original sign, but it's still a representation of the history that was here. So, Father God, we just thank you for your presence. We thank you for your love. We thank you for this connection of the Howard, the Williams family, Miss Judy, her legacy, the ground that we're standing on, Kings Park, many years ago. As I stand here, about to be 41, I started here. My parents coming to this country, not knowing anyone, but was accepted by a stranger. God, we just thank you. And we pray that Miss Judy's legacy will continue to go on strong, not only through her children, through her extended family, but through those that don't even know her, but are picking up the torch to continue whatever she started. So God, I pray for everyone who's watching this, that is a part of Miss Judy's legacy. I pray for everyone who's watching this, that are going through a loss of a loved one. Because it's not just about Miss Judy, but it's about all of us and how life can happen. But God, help us all to learn how to follow your direction in how to be there for each other, how to love each other, how to support each other. Thank you, God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, David. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.